I'm in SolidWorks, so you want to make sure you get SolidWorks opened up. This video is going to cover getting that screwdriver project started for the CNC class. So we're going to go to File and go to New, create a new part. Many of you are SolidWorks users, so this should be nothing new, but I know that some folks are not as strong in CAD yet, so I'm going to take it a little bit slow. I'm going to go on the front plane and create a sketch, and I'm going to come up here and grab my polygon tool. Now I'm going to make a hex, and I'm going to purposely make it so that the flats are not horizontal because I want to make sure that we actually force it to be horizontal so it lines up with one of our planes. It will make the machining go easier later. We got to give a dimension to this. Our stock is 1 inch across the flats, and I've made a mistake already, so you may have also made the same mistake. I forgot to set my units, so double check. We're going to set your units to inches, pounds, and seconds. And I'm going to go back and edit that sketch now. And now I can put my dimension in inches. Distance across the flats is 1 inch. Make sure you're going across the flats, not across the points. Hit OK. Click one of these lines, doesn't matter which one you click, and if you click over here and hit horizontal, it's going to rotate that and it's going to turn everything black so it's now fully defined, and that's what you want to do. Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and exit this sketch, and we're going to extrude it to the length of the stock that we have. I'm going to extrude it 1/8 of an inch shy of the stock length because we're going to machine a little bit off either end. So we're going to go to Features, go to Extruded Boss, and we have to click on this arrow here, select our sketch, and go ahead and send it to 6 3/8, which is 6.375. The next piece is to create a taper on one end of our hex so that we actually, it looks more like a screwdriver, and this is the part, the contour that we're going to machine. So the next part of this is going to show you how to draw the possible options for drawing that shape that's going to be our tapered screwdriver. Okay, we need to create another sketch, and we need to apply some dimensions to that to do our revolved cut. So I'm going to pick one of the planes that passes through the points versus through the flats. So if I hover over here, you can see that my top plane goes through the points and my right plane goes through the flats. So I'm going to select my top plane, and I'm going to create a sketch, and then I'm going to come down here and go normal to that sketch. Okay, notice the origin is here, and that's important. If yours is down here, I would flip-flop what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and come up here and make a sectional view. I have my top plane selected right now. If you don't, you want to make sure it is selected. And if you create a sectional view, it's just going to cut our part in half, make it a little bit easier for us to see what we're doing. Alright, drawing some lines. I'm going to start with some construction lines. I'm going to put a construction line here that's horizontal, and I'm going to give it a distance, grab your dimension tool, of 3 3/4 from the end. Okay, I'm going to draw, actually let's convert some entities. I'm going to convert this edge right here, this plane, hit OK, and now we have a line that represents that edge. I'm going to select that line and delete it. We don't need that one. I'm just going to keep this guy. It's also kept that as well. If you grab this point, you should be able to move it around and change its distance from the origin. Just going to move it over to here for a moment. I'm going to grab my dimension tool and see if we can set that distance to 1/4 of an inch. That's going to give us a 1/2 inch in diameter for this end of our screwdriver. You'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit. Alright, next I want to try creating a straight line that's going to represent a portion of the shaft of my screwdriver. And for my purposes, I'm going to make that 1.5 inches. And then in here, I want to create a splined shape. So I'm going to grab my spline tool. It might be helpful to trim this first. Let me trim this line so I have a point there to grab. Going to grab my spline. I'm going to come up. I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to click here. So I've made 3 clicks, and now I want to grab the handles on my spline. A little difficult to see, but I've got this handle right here, and I want to make that vertical, and then I want to take this handle right here and make that guy vertical, and that's going to make them line up with these 2 edges. Now I do have some adjustments on my shape. I can grab this point, move it over here. I can move it over here. I could take these points and amplify them to some degree. All right, and this is going to affect what my final look of my screwdriver is. I think I'm going to bring this guy back and bring it up in here a little bit, see what that looks like. All right, so going to exit my sketch. Oop, not yet. If you did, just come back in here, right click and edit the sketch. We need a line of rotation. So I need to grab a center line, click on my origin, and I'm just going to take it all the way through. Make sure it's a nice straight line. All right, now we should be able to go to features and go to revolved cut. And it's going to ask for what do I want to cut. I'm going to select this sketch, and I'm going to select contours and select this area. And then my axis of rotation is going to be this line. And I'm going to hit OK. Something funny happened. Okay, for some reason thin line feature was automatically selected. If I deselect that, I think my cut is going to work now. And I'm going to hit OK. And you can see that that's what my screwdriver is going to look like. And I'm going to head and take my sectional view off, and I've made my shape for my screwdriver. Now, if you're unhappy with that shape, you can go back in and edit that sketch and say, for example, you know, I'd like this to start back here a little bit. How's that going to change the look of my screwdriver? If you hit OK and exit the sketch, it's going to immediately update that shape. So maybe you want something a little more concaved here instead of rounded. So play around with your sketch, play around with your spline, and come up with a shape that works well for you. All right. That covers this part of the video. Next thing we're going to need to do is set up a job, in which case we can hopefully get the CNC lathe to cut this profile for us. On this end, we're going to do a conversational milling, which is going to cut our threads out, and we're going to use a traditional lathe to drill the holes in both ends. We can put the holes in here just to have them for reference, but we're going to end up doing those on the lathe.